Please welcome Jean-Pierre Carniaux, a famous architect from RBTA. And I will ask him if he has some greeting from Ricarda Bofilla for us.
Well, I have some news. I'm not Ricardo. I'm sorry. I'm Jean-Pierre Carniaux. I'm a partner. Yes, of course, Ricardo is a person who likes Prague very much. We have built here. We have built quite a few buildings, and we had a very good time with Czech architects and Czech people and Czech intellectuals. And so he's sending you his sorry not to be able to come, but he trusts me, which is okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Because I've been 45 years with him, so he should trust me.
Yeah, we are very happy that we have you here. It's great. So I think it's time for a presentation. It's absolutely yours. You can say whatever you want. We are waiting for it. We have almost 1 hour, so we will see if there will be time for questions, but I hope they will be answered after, maybe. So we will see, and thank you.
Okay, well, basically, what I want to do today is to present you some of our work during many years, because the atelier has been founded 50 years ago by Ricardo, and we worked a little bit all over the world. And I'm interested in showing the works. What we're interested in showing in general is what the architect has to face. Because the architect spends his time talking to people who know much more than he does. So you talk to an engineer, he knows much more about water than you do. You talk to a politician, he knows much more what he wants. Talk to a client, he knows much more what he wants. And you sort of suffer. But finally, you have to do some kind of synthesis between what they all want. Then there's the public, the user, of course, who wants something too, which is probably different. So we've been trying to face this, and we've always been thinking since the beginning, and Ricardo is a founder of that, is that design, architecture, has to be mixed with other disciplines. It has to be mixed with planning, it has to be mixed with interior design, it has to be mixed with pure chair design, so you have to be sort of free if you want to be an architect. This is the office. I don't know if maybe I'll sit down because I project a shadow on top of this. So, well, basically, this is the atelier. The atelier d'architectura is a place which is a renovation of an old cement factory. And within this cement factory, we have done this place where people now work. So it is, and we have some references in general about architecture. Really, the basic intention of architecture is space. One of the best places to feel the space and not is the desert, because it's not that you have very special shape, but it's not the shape which is important, but it's the space that it creates. And this is one of our references. So this kind of images is what we have in the head, and we've been even traveling there, traveling to the desert to feel a little bit real space and the anxiety of space. Our studio is this. So this is a work which started 45 years ago. It's a factory, a cement factory. And the funny thing is that the first work of the architect is not to build, but to destroy. So what happened is that it's been a destruction work. We've been destroying the factory. We've been bombing some places so that we could leave some spaces. And we've been inhabiting these spaces, and now this space is transformed slowly it's been transformed into a place where you can live. One of the important thing about this is that architects are very interested with discipline. They have some kind of discipline ideas. And one, for instance, is that use is form. Well, use is not form, because they were using this place for sand and gravel and cement. And now it's full of architects. So obviously, it was done for something, but it's used for something else. So everything is possible. So what happened is we planted, well, we created within these silos, we created some floors. We painted, we put stucco on, and we put some gardens on the top, and we did some design of these windows. Let me see if I can do that. Whoops. I'm pressing too many keys. Sorry. Difficult to see. Okay, well, we've done some windows, and we've put some floors, and we created this space, which is now our studio. It's as well some living quarters. Ricardo lives here, and it's a place which is now quite famous. Many people come and visit in Barcelona, and this is the place where this is inside. And the funny thing about this is, another thing which is a remark, but it's true, is that within this space, which is in fact what was there, what was destroyed, if you only put a floor and you put some nice furniture, it becomes a real space. So you don't need that much if you want to do a nice space. And I think that was one of the quality of this space, is this feeling of being in a very, very strange place, but comfortable. And we work here, we have session here, we have the session with the clients, because the clients, we have to, in some way, convince them. Sometimes they're very surprised, because they're saying, depends on the client. These are some other places within the factory. This is a living room. This is a cube with what we call the cube. And this is the team. So the team is very international. There are very many different nationalities. We have Argentinian, Spanish, Catalan, German, Brazilian, Chinese, and we have a lot of people of different places. And this is Ricardo's. Ricardo is here with me and Peter Hodgkinson, who is another partner, and here you have his two sons who are now directing the place. This is the place where we worked. It's where we have some buildings. And so it's quite international. And what we do is we try to work internationally, but always with the people from the country. Here in Prague, for instance, we had very good experiences with local architects, but we try to work with the people. Anyway, it's impossible to do other way, because you don't speak Czech, or you don't speak Chinese, or you don't speak whatever, so you can't have any permit. So I'm going to show you some things about planning some projects, which are planning projects. This is a university which is situated in the middle of the desert in Morocco. And it's a university which is completely created from scratch. We've done the first phase of 60,000 here. Now we are doing the second phase, which is all this. This is built. This is l'école des mines. This is it's for the future responsible people. It's next to Marrakesh, and it's a very strange place because it's a desert of stone. So these are the different buildings. But what we wanted in this plan is to make a city which is low, 2 floors, 3 floors, integrated with some references to Moroccan architecture. and to make a life for a student which is pleasant. It's like a campus. It's a campus, but with, and so we did some design, some drawings, previous drawing of facades, for instance. This is the facade of l'École des Mines. L'École des Mines is a place where you learn about mine. I don't know how you say mine in English. Anyway, and this is the result. So we've done, and this is an architecture of courtyards, an architecture of patios. So all the buildings have exterior patios. They are all with the natural light and natural ventilation. And so you can see here in the picture, you have the big windows which are out of scale with what we call urban windows. And we have these spaces which are breathing with the sky because it's very hot and it's naturally ventilated. It is sort of successful. We're doing something which is very simple in terms of construction. We don't complicate. We don't make technological, exaggerated gesture in this particular case, because it's not the case to build complicated things with, in a country where it's more difficult. But we do some gesture. So we have covered this one of the big plaza, one of the big piazza with this self-standing roof, which is using Gaudi type of structure where you reverse the structure and you have the shape which is given by the weight of the thing that you put, and then you reverse it, and you build on top, and you make this big roof, urban roof. So we have urban windows, urban roof. And this is the new buildings. These are the new buildings which we are now doing. We are starting to build some of them, and it's a big work. This is a student center, and basically that's it. Then I wanted to show you another project, because China is the end of the world, but it's the beginning of beginning of our era. So it's very far, but at the same time, it's a very close future. So we've been asked to do a competition with many famous architects around the world, and we did this urban project, which is in a place where everything has to be done. It has to be a smart city. It has to be a green city. It has to be clean, because the whole thing is very dirty now. There are still steel industries, and it's a mess, and there are clouds of smoke, and it's so the intentions are all there, and we have to do some kind of city where you can, which they call smart, where everything happens underground, where you can buy your things which come underground and arrives to a point and then is distributed in every 400 meters. But at the same time, when we work, we always want to give some kind of image. So even in urban planning, we want to try to give an image of what it can be in terms of shape, in terms of architecture, in terms of aesthetics. So urban planning is a good discipline, but sometimes it stays with numbers and it stays with very objective goals, but sometimes it stays away from what we call urban design. So we've done this project, which is a project with different densities of housing, the center of the town, the river as a place which lives, and it's a very ideal city. And the Chinese government is fighting to decide how they're going to make it, because it's but they are able to, because they've done these incredible new cities in Shenzhen or in other places. So maybe it will be built. For the moment, this is not only a smart, not only a technical, it's a dream city. It doesn't exist yet. we started this urban design thing a long time ago. This is a project in Montpellier. I show you some drawings of mine just because this was another period in the office where we went to France, and we wanted to do an urbanism which has some quality of some classical quality. Why classical? Well, because first, France is a place which is very used to classicism. Second, because classicism is a thing which allows repetition, because you got a window and you can repeat the windows, like in the palace in Rome, or you can repeat the front. You have, and you do that industrially. You do that with the concrete. You do panels, prefabricated panels, which are following like a vocabulary, which is the same kind of vocabulary that the classic people were using. The column, the frontispiece. Well, you've got such a beautiful architecture here that I'm not going to tell you what classicism is, but we use this. So this is, and the other idea of this project is that you had every operation was done by one developer, and every operation was a piazza. So when you were moving forward, building this thing, it was built by 200 housing or 250 apartments. So it was built by phases, one after one, which was making this axis, which some people don't like because there's some point where you want to break everything, especially when you're young. Then when you're a little older, you're broken yourself, so you don't want to break anymore. But what I'm saying is that this idea was to have the city. The city is here. Then there was a big mall here, which was blocking really like a cul-de-sac, blocking the city from this land, which is a military land. And so we decided to make a hole in this building, to make a stair building, to go down from this building to the new place and to reach the river. And so this was the idea behind this. And this is prefabrication, what I was explaining. So prefabrication means that you use the windows and you repeat that. You repeat prefabricated elements and you put them on top, and you can build fast, and you can give a face to the city, which is in fact very important too, because many people speak about the individual expression of the building, but the facade is something which is dedicated to the public space. It's not the expression of the building in our terms, in our vision. And so you have some elements. These are some drawings of the prefabricated panel, and you can see them, and you just stick them. This is in situ concrete, and then you put these elements, and you make a facade for the public. Now, we've done other projects too. We've done airports. This is the first airport we did in Barcelona. And then we did a second airport later. So the first airport is, the main theme of the first airport is a rambla, what we call a rambla. So what we try to do is a place where you walk, but you don't sit. You sit here in the triangles, but you don't sit here. You walk there, and you buy and these things. So this is what we do. This is the main hall. It used to have palm trees, but then they died. So we have to put lyophilized palm trees. That happens. And this is the Rambla. This is the place where you walk. And then we did this new airport, which was done in 2013, which now you arrive to Barcelona. You've probably been there because now it's a tourist place like yours, maybe more, which gives some difficulties to everybody. But that's life. And so we have these people arriving into this airport, which has a good feeling of space because it has this roof which moves which moves slightly and gives some kind of amplitude to the people who walk inside. In fact, architecture, there's one quality of the architecture you can see when the architecture is nice, is when the people, they don't walk like this, they walk a little bit like they feel that they're in the middle of a scenery or a theater or something. It's a sign that it can be interesting. This was a very complicated project with many different builders, many specialties, air conditioning, traffic, air engineers. So you have to spend your time talking and to convince to do this place, which is looking, this big axis here. You walk and you see the sea. Then we do competitions. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This one is for the Barça, and it didn't work. But I still show it to you because I have to show some works which don't work. We don't know why it doesn't work, why it didn't work. Or we know, but we don't want to say. So, well, this was a presentation. I show this just because the interest was the kind of effort that an architectural team puts in a competition, which sometimes results in nothing. But you have to be ready for that, I suppose. So this is the Barça. You probably have recognized if there are some football people. And Barça is a very important football club. And it had to be blue and red. And then I show you some buildings fast with different kind of buildings, because what I think is that it's important, the building which are important is where the people meet. For instance, this place, it's very nice. Told me it was 35 meters, I don't remember, 25 or 35 meters. And it's nice because people meet. So we have to build places where people meet, to listen to music, to listen to people, to listen to themselves, to listen to concert, whatever. And this is a place, this is a Congress of Palace that we did a long time ago, 20 years ago at least, in Madrid, which has 3 auditoriums, one on top of each other, and buildings on the side, which are buildings where the commission rooms are. And this is the inside, this is the Congress place, which has 2,000 seats. It's wood. This is another building, which is an auditorium in music, which is not only an auditorium, but a school of music, and then a school where you learn, classes and so on. And this is the hall. So the hall is an important thing, of course, in auditoriums is acoustics. This place works very well. We have been meeting musicians who like it, and they have to like it, because if not, it's terrible. It's all wood. It's in Valladolid. Valladolid is next to Madrid. It used to be the capital of Spain, not of Catalonia, but of Spain. This is another building, which is an auditorium in Rice University in Texas. This is a long time ago too, where we're using classical language. And this is a church. That was done, I wasn't in the office, but that was done 45 or 46 years ago. And a church is a place as well where people meet. We don't know why or who they want to talk to, but many different gods, but it's important. So we did this church, which is a space where you can enter and you can. And then we did some construction for the suburbs in Paris in 1982. In Paris, you had the system of new towns. So suddenly there was the center, and then they had to put some new towns around, Cergy, Marne-la-Vallée, Saint-Quentin. And so we did a lot of projects for the new towns. And this building is done with, it's 2 buildings facing each other, one amphitheater, a little more expensive, but still very affordable. And this one is social housing, the one which is the red one. And this was done with prefabrication. And now they want to repair it. It's a place which is slightly dangerous now because there's some drug dealers and things like that. And so they want to repair this. And we have to do a new project and to repair it and to try to make it live. So it's a dangerous project. And then this is, I show this because this is why I came to the office. Because I like this building. This building is Walden 7. Walden is the name which is based on a writer which is called Thoreau, and who writes about the countryside. And this building is the image of a village in the sky. So in fact, what happens here is that instead of having a village which is occupying a lot of land, we make a vertical village. And we make a street every 2 levels. So here you walk here, you walk here, you walk here. And you see, and these bridges crosses these urban windows. And it has this feeling of village when you're on the top. In the bottom, not so much, because it's quite dense and quite high. But on the top, you're suddenly in some kind of Andalusia village. With these are the circulation, you go to your apartment through this, and you meet the people who live next door instead of meeting them in the lift. You do meet them as well in the lift, but this is the view from the top, which is now very fashion, the drone thing. This is some old projects. I'm going a little bit fast. It's called the Red Wall. La Manson Era is a group of touristic apartments in front of the sea. There's this building. This is 1971. I wasn't there either. But it's an allegory of the rock. You have the rock here in the end, and you have the building which looks like the rock. So it means that you have to build with the context to be, and this is Ricardo used to call that period the Utopia Period, because now it's very difficult to do this kind of thing, because it's three-dimensional and it's and you don't know where your apartment is, and it's complicated. You have to walk down, you have to walk up. Developers protest, but it's quite sculptural. It's kind of, it's like Eshed, or like it's Prague. We had an extremely good time in Prague because we worked with authorities, and we did, and with private developers and Carlin Group, and we worked in this industrial place, which was Kathleen, and we did this office building, different office building, but the basic thing was first the urban planning, which consists of creating streets, because the blocks were very big. They are like 400 by 400. So we created streets in the urban planning, and then we did some buildings. But I don't have the plans here of Prague. You can look at them. It's and this is another building, which is an urban building. It's a bank. It's in Paris. And the idea is to make a passage, a street. So, in fact, you've got these bankers, important bankers, Paribas, rich bankers, and they walk on the bridges, crossing to one building to another. And then on the ground floor is the continuation of the existing street, and you have shops and restaurants. And it's a completely glass building. There was one point where we were calling our buildings temples. And then now we don't say it anymore, but it's a glass temple. And it's all glass. These are some buildings that we did for fashion, for Rocha, which is bijou, jewel type. we have to do some dual architecture, which is this complicated, sophisticated glass wall, which is here, which has some lights included inside. It's quite a nice building. You see this on the top. You can see in the image on the top, you can see these diamonds. These are lights. It's a very precious building, and it's using the vocabulary of the street. It's not interrupting. It's not the dancing. What do you call the building by Getty here? The dancing.
Dancing house, yeah.
The dancing house. Well, in that case, it's not dancing. It's just staying within the cityscape. And this is the facade behind. This is another building which is inside a Parisian block. It's for Cartier. And so we do an urban gesture as well. It's an interior street. This is and we keep some of the existing building on the right-hand side, and the left-hand side we make like an amphitheater, but very, very, I mean, not very deep, just a curved facade. We do a roof on the top, and we try to do spaces for the people who are not belonging to, who are not using the building. This is a project we've done in Tokyo. I show this because there's something important about drawing and drawing by hand. Computers are the most efficient method for designing, and now you can do everything with. But the feeling of priorities is more defined in the first phases. After it's impossible to use, but in the first phases it's important to have the feeling of the intention in plan, in elevation. And so we did this building, which is for Shiseido. Shiseido is a cream beauty products for women, for men as well. And it had to age beautifully, which is what we all try to do, to age beautifully. So the theme of the building was aging beautifully. And so that has this red skin, which is done with stucco, metal paint, very complicated. And the other thing which is interesting about this building is that the owner wanted to do a building, but they didn't have exactly the sense of what it would be used for. But it didn't matter. So we did a gallery on the bottom, a restaurant on the top, and then little by little, we agreed with him. And it's in one of the most expensive corners of Tokyo. It's in Ginza. And the nice thing about Japan is that when they build, once it's defined and once things are decided, which takes a long time, then the workers work with gloves. They come to the site with gloves. At the right time, the truck is waiting on the other corner, and the whole thing is quite perfect. The construction is impeccable. This is the gallery, the hall. There's a gallery under, the art gallery. And this is another thing, I go fast. This is for Casablanca. We did 2 towers, and we tried to use something coming from Moroccan architecture within these 2 towers, which are office building, and on the bottom there's a mall. And so we try to work with a Moroccan geometry and, well, Arab geometry. And then we did this project in Japan, which is a mall. And what's interesting about this mall is that it has an interior street, like a typical mall, which is behind, and then it has an exterior space. And the other thing, which is a half circle, and the other thing which is interesting is that it's linked to a fast train. So the people stop in Kawasaki, they go inside, they shop for 2 hours, and then they go away within this. And it has these terraces of wood, of artificial wood, which is looking at the space. And people like it. we are now doing this building in China, which takes in Shanghai, which is a combination, and this is as well some kind of urban gesture, because the town finally decided to protect some of these small houses. And so they are protected, and behind is suddenly to scale, which is not bad, because suddenly you have a very small scale and a very high scale just next to it. But it's for Shanghai. It's probably not for here. But it's an interesting. The building will take a few years because it has a basement 30 meters down, which has to connect two subway stations. So it's going to take quite a while. And so we do, but we try to do an architecture which is sort of detailed. I wouldn't call it, it wants to meet somewhere Art Deco, because Shanghai is a very Art Deco city. And it has this contrast between the very pedestrian scale and then this tower, which doesn't even exist because you don't see it, because it has something done for the pedestrian at his scale. This we've done in Chicago in '92. It's a building which has a classical top. It's a glass building. It's a very interesting construction because it's glass and concrete panels with granite on top, a very fine granite. It's in the loop next to the river, and now there's a big airline who's using it. We did the hall with marble and sculpture by a sculptor who's called Corbero, which is dying now. The black sculptures there. And these are the lifts for the elevator. And this is the integration in the city. This is another project we've done in Barcelona. It's a building which is a hotel, the Hotel W. It's on the beach. And it's right in the sea. So the advantage is that it has this reflective wall, which in a city it's bad because it reflects the other building and it reflects them completely like this because the glass is not regular, but here it reflects the sky. So the advantage is that this massive form is sort of disappearing within the sky. And this is a place for Desigual, which is this fashion shop, which is just next door. So we did the end of the Paseo de Barcelona, which is a beach which finishes here in this piazza, which is 11 meters above the sea and which has this hotel. This is the inside, and this is the room. So you're really in the sea. And this is I finished in general by this image because we did a wine cellar for Chateau Lafite. So it's good to think about the possible glass of wine that you will have after the conference. So this is the cellar we did. It's an interesting place because it's 50 meters. It's octagonal. And the owner, who is Rothschild, wanted to have the how do you call the barrique? These things which hold the wine barrels, organized in round, which was a first. It's not very practical to work. It's better to have them straight. But he liked it. Now he does fiesta inside. And it has 2 meters beams deep because it has to hold the 2 meters of earth where each vine is growing with an incredible price. He sends this. So. And that's it. Basically, that's what I can show you. But I have many others. But that's it. So basically, if there are some questions,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's an impressive list of projects, I guess. Do you have some questions? I think it was quite interesting, and maybe you have some questions for Monsieur Carniaux. Do you have some questions? Are there someone? No?
No question.
I said that I was impressed that you were supposed to found the office in New York. After 10 years, you were in the office. Is that right? Was that challenging for you?
I was not 10 years, but I was there quite a long time because we started with an interesting project which was done by a...
May I ask you when it was? It was in 1986. You have founded
yes, something like that.
Office in New York, yeah.
Yeah. And we started with a project with a developer who had a land which is opposite of New York, which is in New Jersey. It's called the Palisades. And you have the city of New York, and he bought this land to the railroads. And so when he bought the land, of course, that land has the view of the whole skyline of New York. It's very exceptional. You could put housing and so on. So we started with this project which lasted, I don't know, something like 5 years. But we didn't build it. He built it because he didn't want to spend a penny. He just wanted, since he had this beautiful land, he didn't want to put money to actually build. So we don't need only owners. We need developers, people who can risk their money so that you can build, because if not, you can't build. So that's what happened. And that's how it was created. And then we started to work, and we worked in New York, we worked in Texas, we worked in different places.
Okay. Any questions? Someone? Yeah?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
You showed us in the presentation just these huge projects and skyscrapers and hotels. Is this all your studio is doing, or is there like villas or smaller projects you are doing? Because you showed us just the big ones.
Yeah, I showed here the big projects. Small projects, we do some, but we do few, because our team is 60 people, 70 people, and you have to pay them. And when you do something small, you know that the fees are tied to the square meters. So in general, it's better. You need some money to pay the people. So, but we try to do some jewels. Sometimes we try to do some kind of private house or some kind of, but few, because it's difficult to do. I didn't show here, but I should have shown you the house of Ricardo, for instance, which is in Montreux. It's a very nice house, which is separated in different cells, but it has a living room and everything. You have to go outside to go everywhere. It's quite nice. But no, we do some small projects, but it's not for the office. It's impossible.
We have a huge projection wall, so it's good for huge projects. I understand that. You worked in Carlin a lot.
Yeah.
You know that.
I didn't show because I show tomorrow. I have to do 2 conferences, so I don't know if the same people come. They won't see the same thing. So, tomorrow, if you come to the other show, then I can explain the other project. But basically, what is the question?
So this is the invitation for tomorrow's summit. And I wanted to ask you. So you know Prague well, and
yes,
and you know the master planning of Smíchov and master planning of Karlín. Are there some differences from other cities? Was there something that surprised you? Was something that was challenging?
In Karlín is one of the best places that we have worked, because suddenly, first thing is the first building we worked on is a building which was existing, which is Palace Karlín, which is the orange building, which is in the middle of Karlín. I don't know if you know it. And it was an existing building. And basically, we just did a patio. We added 2 floors, but we respected so that was the first balance between respect and new. And then we did this Corso Karlín, which is a very long 100 meters factory, which was doing, I don't know what, some kind of complicated thing. And then we put 2 floors on top. And so there was an integration between new and old, between memory and future, which we found mostly in the city, because in many cities, they destroy everything. In Japan, they destroyed Frank Lloyd Wright building, which was the Imperial Palace, because they don't have this. So here, there's this sense of renovation which exists. At the same time, you have to build new things which work and so on. But there's so we found this atmosphere of urban design, because we did create some streets by our buildings, and then we found this approach of mixing memory and future, mixing past and future.
Yeah. And do you know about the floods in Carlin? What happened in 2004?
No, we didn't do flats. We know the developers who did flats, but we didn't do apartments.
No, floods. I mean, when the water.
Yes. We did one project, which wasn't built, and the model of this project disappeared in the flood. So we know about the flood because it was actually exposed in Carlin, Corso. And the flood was 2 meters. So no, we know it's a big problem, the flood.
Do you have another question? Someone interesting? Yeah, great.
Hi. So some of your buildings are very famous to the extent that even the residents don't like it. Was it something that...
Sorry, to the extent?
That the residents don't like it. The people that live there, they don't
they don't like it. Yeah, that happens, yes.
Was it something you were looking for?
They have to move.
So
yeah.
What do you think about it?
Well, the Walden building, which I showed to you, which is this building with the internal streets and the village in the sky. When I came to, when you were taking a taxi, and you wanted to go to Walden, they always telling you that horrible building. So that happens. I mean, the people react to the building and they say it's horrible and you can't help it. But I'm sure that building, Walden, for instance, has incredible qualities. Maybe the shape surprised the people and it was sort of tough, these cubes one on top of each other with just with these holes. But in fact, there were some ideas behind. So I think most of our buildings resist end users. I don't know which one you're thinking of. You must tell me which one they don't like, and then I will tell you why.
I was thinking about Muralla Roya in Spain.
Which one?
The colorful one.
The La Muralla Roja.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because when I visited, actually the residents, they put like oil on the walls, so you can't climb over the wall.
Yeah. Well, it happens too. We had problems with Walden too, because the ties were falling at some point, so we had to repair. And in Muralla Roja, it's a place which is Utopian period. So it's like, you have to live with things too, and if you don't like it, then they have to move. But I think it's quite a spectacular building, not only from the outside, for the users, but I'm sure that many users are not happy. I don't know what to say, because users, I remember at some point we were doing prefabricated houses, small houses, prefabricated for Bouygues, a big concrete company. And they were telling us, well, you know what we are going to do? We're going to do these buildings, and then we're going to ask the people, we're going to tell them they can choose the color of their rooms. So they started to choose, and everybody who was deciding about the color of their rooms were making the apartment with every room with a different color. So when you ask the user what he wants, you suddenly get this horrible house with a red room and a blue room and a yellow room, and because you just followed what he wanted. So sometimes you have to balance all this. You have to try to please the client, but at the same time you have to build what you believe. And if he doesn't believe in the same thing, I don't know. I mean, there are other architects, but we're not alone.
Great. Another question? Someone? No? Jean-Pierre, do you know that Prague is preparing the competition for a new concert hall?
That's what I heard, yes.
Did you hear about it?
Well, I heard that they're going to announce it tomorrow. I thought it was a secret.
Oh, no. Maybe our secret, but I guess it will be next year. We're still preparing it. Do you think it's a great idea? Do you think it's an opportunity?
Listen,
would you be interested?
No, I think, I mean, my feeling is that the places where people meet are the most important. And I think culture is one of the most important European value. And I think to listen to Beethoven, you cannot listen it in a helmet, or you cannot look at in a record, or you have to see the orchestra, and I think it's very important. I mean, I don't know, maybe you have many auditoriums, it's very difficult to decide the size for how many, it has to work, it has to have other activities, but I think culture is something absolutely essential, and it fills especially when you grow old, it fills the soul. So I really believe it's important.
Yeah, it's actually 100 years since we built the last one.
So I really think it's a good idea. But I know, I mean, I had some questions somewhere. Someone asked me, don't you think it's more important to have a transportation system? No?
You think? Well, you can ask tomorrow on summit, because during the summit you'll meet
of course.
many
I mean,
people.
Transportation system is a very important thing.
You will meet Mr. Pleskot. He's involved in that very much. So I think he'll be happy
and then
to
you have all
tell you more about it.
Musical composer here, no? I've never Janacek, or I don't know, Dvorak, or Mahler. I mean, where are you going to play Mahler? You can't. You got to.
So do we have last question?
The problem is that everybody has now they have one computer in front of the.
Yeah, you are absolutely right.
They have cast computer or glasses. The whole thing is. So it's true. I mean, maybe you don't need it. You just need to be in your apartment.
You're right. You're right.
An apartment that you like, not an apartment that you don't like. But it doesn't even matter, because you're always looking at series or whatever, so it doesn't matter.
So we have time for last question. If there's someone, yes.
I would like to ask you if, what's your thoughts about the Prague airport design, like interiorly, and the Prague metro, like in comparison to one another?
Prague
metro.
The Prague metro.
Metro.
Yeah. I don't, I mean, the Prague, when was it built, the Prague airport?
10 years ago?
10
years ago, I think, yeah.
So I remember when I came 10, 15 years ago, it was new, it was okay. Because the first one was not working. And so that one works. That one works very well. When you come out of the plane, you're right outside of the door in 5 minutes, which is not a bad thing. Now, aesthetically, well, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have chosen the same materials, and the sense of space is not the same as ours. We prefer ours, which is a normal thing. But it's quite well solved. And the metro, I don't know well, because I have to admit that I didn't take the metro in Prague, which is a scandal. But
So do you like our metro?
I don't know it.
You don't know it? You should use it.
Yes, I should use it. Yeah. I think I used it once or twice, but I
tried once.
But it's good.
You can go to Karlin. You can go to Karlin and visit Karlin. Yeah, it's really good.
It's a good metro.
Yeah, it's really nice.
No, I remember.
Spacey.
Yes, I remember.
If you compare it with the London one, it's really spacey.
Of course, it's not like the Moscow one. I know the Shanghai one, which is quite impressive. It goes very fast. And I think I've been once or twice in yours, and I remember something comfortable. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. It's true. It's true that all these places they have. I mean, it's true. It's very important to build for the people for the community in some way, no? So that there's some size to it and some space and some. It's like entering, it's like entering in a little office and you've got a vestibule like this for a tower of 30 floors of the same lawyers or whatever who work at the desk, and they have a minimum lobby. But it's a pity. The clever thing about the States is that the first 6 floors, they do a hall, because nobody wants to rent the 5th floor, the 4th floor. They want to rent the top. So they do a hall which is 18 meters high. And the people, they feel better when they go to work. So I agree with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Tak. Než se s vámi rozloučím, děkuji za potlesk pro pana hosta. Než se s vámi rozloučím, pozvu vás tedy ještě jednou na zítřejší summit architektury a rozvoje, Sdružení pro architekturu a rozvoj. Pokud máte čas, určitě tam jděte, koná se v Obecním domě, potkáte tam nejen Jean-Pierre Carniaux, ale potkáte tam i další mezinárodní hosty, potkáte tam i české architekty a určitě dojde i na zajímavá témata, takže určitě doporučuji, pokud máte čas si tam odskočit, běžte, bude to zajímavé. A moc vám děkuji, že jste dneska přišli. Urban Talks se určitě vrátí v říjnu s dalším hostem a už tento týden tady bude další zajímavá akce. Takže pokud budete chtít, doporučte stream z dnešní akce přátelům, případně se tady zase zastavte, rád vás uvidím i s naším týmem. Děkuji moc krát, dobrou noc.
I don't know.